Hello guys. Um, I've been trying to kind of capture some trades and stuff on paper, or on video. So we're having a look at euro. Today is the 1st of October, and I'm having a look at a pivot trade long on euro. So it's quite interesting. First of all, the risk here is quite big. The reward is not that great, and it's going to be interesting to see how this turns out. What we have obviously is an uptrend on the daily. We're in between the moving averages, that's not really a great sign. We have what appears to be forming currently a low test off the 20 moving average, but of course by the end of the day this could change completely. So price could end up moving down to here. So it's very curious to see what happens here. We also have an overextension away from the 50 moving average here, and what we have done though is we have broken the downward channel on the 4-hourly. So that implies that potentially we are about to start doing higher lows and higher highs, but we'll see what happens there. So basically what I like here is I like I'm looking to see if the daily then follows through, because I'm sort of long on the euro, and I'm not sure if the euro is going to turn around today or not. So I'm willing to kind of have a look at taking this trade. So I'm looking to watch how the 5-minute bar closes above the pivot, and if the following bar then breaks the high, and if that happens, I'm then going to enter the trade. Into the trade, I'm going to take my target to 5 pips below this level. So my target would be, if that's 2931, my target is going to be 2926, I beg your pardon. 2926 will be my target. And let's have a look and see what happens there. So we'll do that. I'm just going to make it a very short trade. And in fact, what I've done is I'm going to put my stop a little bit lower. What I'm going to do is tighten up, and I'm going to put it underneath the 50 moving average and below the previous swing low. Because what could happen, to be honest, is if the trade is going to fail, that's exactly how it's going to do it. And so the entry is going to be somewhere around here. So the risk reward is not great. The trend is potentially looking like it might be kicking around, and this might end up being a high probability trade. But also what I want you to, so in other words, what I'm trying to do is highlight all the things that are wrong with this. It's trying to say the 4-hourly is in a downtrend. Why? Because we have lower lows and lower highs. And so we're looking to see, and so potentially what's going to happen is it'll hit the 50 and then turn around and continue back into a downtrend, which would probably line up somewhere with this halfway mark. So this is our R1, and this is our S1 down here. This is our R.5 and our S.5. So it's really going to be interesting to see, first of all, if this manages to close up here, and if it ends up touching that, does it turn around here and then kick back into a downtrend, or does it ultimately work its way up to do this? In other words, is today the day the euro is going to turn around? So let's have a look and see. I'm still of the impression that the euro has further to pull back down here, at least down to 2750, 2745, around there, and touch close to this trend line and touch this. So we may in fact have a setup here that then ultimately does not hit target. It actually comes up, either bounces off the pivots in a downtrend. So in other words, this may actually be a pivot short trade, or potentially goes up to hit this. So really, what I'm ultimately trading here is the daily, but this is not really the right way to trade. We're in between the moving averages. All we really have is high lows, high highs. We have a low test off the 20. That's all I've really kind of got going for me. There was a potential trend line through there that this is possibly why we're getting this reaction here. And so let's just see how this behaves when it comes up to that level, and let's see if this trade is a success. I expect it to probably actually fail either here or at this level, and not to go up and hit target. I'm not really expecting that, because I still think that the euro has some room to pull back. And this may just be what's called a bull trap. The bull trap being the bulls obviously feel that this is the day it's going long, and what it actually does is they enter the trade, and then it ultimately fails and hits their stops. So I'm going to pause this until we get a bit closer to this and we see what happens, but it should be in the next few minutes. Okay, let's have a look here. Not sure if it's going to be this bar that's going to hit up. Let's just have a look and see how this one behaves. So what we're looking to do is we want to see a particularly strong close above that. So we're looking for two things, particularly strong close above this pivot level, and for the next 5-minute bar to then break the high of that. And as it breaks the high of that particular closed bar, we're going to enter live into the trade. So let's just have a look and see what happens with this particular thing. My concern is obviously, as I said before, is price will ultimately bounce off here, or bounce off this, just because lately we've been getting a lot of that. We've been getting a lot of setups that have triggered for the last 7-8 days, and ultimately have not gone on to hit their target. So let's see how that goes here. And even if you look here, we've got a particularly solid bar. In relation to the average size of the bars here, this is pretty much due now for the next bar to open. So let's see what ultimately happens here. We might in fact find that this bar then moves up and closes as a low test. I guess what I'm saying is I'm just not entirely trusting the setup at this point in time. I'd really have to see it continue up for the rest of the day before I really buy into the whole idea. So let's have a look here. Come on. Again, we've got 3 minutes until this bar closes anyway. So I think I'm going to pause the video and let's just see where this bar closes. I'll start recording again in the last 30 seconds of this, and then let's see how that goes. Okay. So we've got 15 seconds before this bar closes. Let's see what ultimately happens here. Does it break up above, or do we wait for the next bar to do the move then? So let's have a look. Okay, there we go. Let's see what this bar does then. So it's very important, obviously the close in this particular case is quite important to see what happens here. We'll see it. I think it's probably going to attempt to break through. The question is how nicely, how gracefully will it close. Okay, so again we have 4 minutes until we get to that point. And I can't enter again anyway until the next bar. So I'm going to pause again. Let's see where this closes. I'll do it again. I'll do it in the last 30 seconds, and let's see what happens. And of course, the bar can make a move all the way up here. That can happen. So what we might ultimately do is if the bar does a big move up here, the next bar breaks a high, we might wait for price to pull back down closer to this and then enter again with a slightly almost as though it does a break and a retest. And so what we'll do is then look at the 1 minute chart just to get a sense of how price is coming back down, and then we'll take it long again. So so I'm going to pause this and I'll catch up with you in about 3 minutes or so. Okay, here we are. We now have 30 seconds until the close of this bar. And let's have a look at what this price is doing. It's kind of pierced it, but it needs to actually close. Obviously, we need to see this one close nicely. So let's have a look and see how serious it is about doing that. Please note that obviously on the way up here, we have some cycles occurring. So we have kind of cycles occurring. High lows, high highs, and even on a bar by bar basis, currently we've got higher lows and high highs. So if the next bar breaks the low first, we then will have a bounce off it, we'll have a pullback. Let's see now what happens in this particular area if we get that first. If we don't, if it obviously goes up and breaks, we'll just see what happens then. Again, I would still like to see a close above that level. If I don't see that close, then I'm going to get. So again, we're going to have to wait. We've got several minutes to go now. We've got 4 minutes to go. So I'm going to pause the video again. And let's see how this bar in particular closes. Alright. Okay, there we go. We didn't get a very solid close on that one. I'm sorry, I got distracted and I forgot to see how this closed, but broken above the high there. Again, I still want to see this one close above the pivot, because it may actually ultimately end up closing below. So again, I'm going to leave it for 3 or 4 minutes, and we'll come in and just see how this bar closes. Okay, and if it's ultimately gone and done a big move up, or if it's pulled back, closed underneath. All of that's quite important. So we're stalking this trade until we get the entry that we're looking for. Okay, here we go. Jumping in again, 9:49, 30, 40, 25 seconds to go, and let's just see how this one closes. I'd like to see it close decently above that level. Okay. How are we doing there? Again, we'll just pass until we get that good close above it. Otherwise, of course, a good fail. There we go. So notice how that happened. Notice how the price came up and then ultimately closed below that. So we're not looking as strong on this pivot just yet. So I'm going to pause the video again. Let's see what this bar does. Okay, so we need that nice solid close above that pivot before we enter that trade. That's part of the setup. Okay. There we go. Okay, so we've got a bit more of a bullish close there. Still not really seeing, obviously kind of want to see what happens here again. just again want to see this bar close. And again, what's probably going to happen here is if it doesn't bounce, it'll do quite a big move up because it's just it's very slowly working its way across this pivot, across this level. So again, I'm going to pause the video here. Sorry guys, I know I keep stopping, starting, but we're just not getting that setup. Thought I'd start this again so you can kind of see what happened next, this is obviously the kind of thing that can get very frustrating for pivot traders, is that you do get that big move in, and maybe it's not as, maybe it just looks worse because we do this kind of thing. I think it's really just more important in this particular situation, see where the bar closes, because the bar might actually close above here at a healthy level, which still then allows us to get our opportunity to get in. The game isn't over just yet. It does get obviously frustrating is that when it breaks that level, it really works its way halfway up, and that just reduces the risk reward. Yeah, and we've got a couple of minutes left. So yeah, we've got 1 minute and 15 seconds left. So we'll just pause. Let's see what happens with this. Okay, here we go. Putting this into perspective, this is where it gets frustrating, of course, that reward is sitting at about 32 pips for a risk of approximately 60. So it's not such a great deal. That's a good solid close above. And yeah, we're going to have a look at that break on that, break the high. And then we're going to hopefully have price pull back a little bit. We'll switch this to a 1 minute chart and then wait for price to pull back a little. So that's a 1 minute chart, and there we go, we've broken the high, and technically we have our entry. We just want to see price pull back a little bit, and then take an entry just on a little bit of a lower level. So the broker's chart is currently sitting at 2896. We want price to drop back down, which it may not do. It may ultimately just carry on, proceed. So it'd be nice to see this thing pull back. A lot of traders would then wait for price to actually come back and retest this because we're overdue for a pullback to the 50 moving average, and then let it go. But let's just have a look here. So we've got 2896, 2898, 2897. So just having a look here at brokers. Yeah, so 1 minute looks like we've got a bit of a test. There we go. So and there goes price. Okay. So wait again for price to come in. At least looking for an entry around the 2898. There we go. Hold on a second. 2898. Let's have a look. And there we go. Okay. So now I'm in the trade, and I'm still expecting price to actually pull back. I'm still expecting price to pull back here at some point to come back and retest this. But in the meantime, I've taken the optimal entry, which is exactly at that level, including my spread. So let's just see how this ultimately turns out. Yeah, let's take this trade, and that's our target. So 2826 is my target. And I'm going to just check that is the case. 2826. And the stop is currently sitting at... so look, this 2826 is my target. And I think 2847 will do fine. Basically I have a setup of about 53 pip stop for 26 pip reward. Let's go and I'm going to amend that and just see how that works. I've actually expanded my stop by 3 pips. Which is not so bad. I got a more optimal entry. So let's have a look and see how this trade turns out. What I will do is I'm going to pause it and I'll just keep jumping in and see how we progress towards the target if we ultimately have a pullback before we hit the target. So my entry is, let's just put this in at exactly that number, which was the 282. Oh, is that right? That looks a bit funny there. The level I got in was at the 289. Was that 289? Let me just check this quickly. Okay, so this is just a little bit further into the trade. This is the actual entry that I got specifically entered me in at 2.9, as opposed to the 2.8 level where I was trying to get in at 2.896. And just wanted to highlight, okay, what we now have is a ranging bar, an outside bar, broke the low, broke the high, so it's tentatively trying to proceed onwards. And so we're just going to keep watching that to see how that goes. And I think what I want to do at some point is, because the market's been so funny these days with kind of reversing, my goal is to kind of get the optimal entry would have been right in here. So in other words, if you have that patience to see if price is going to come back, because it may not, once it's broken through that pivot, it could just head on up to that level to the target and then pull back. But so we may just see what happens here ultimately. If this, I'm very keen to get my stop to break even as quickly as possible, or even under the next swing low. So I may just trail my stop under the moving average. And let's just see. This is still the 1 minute chart. Let's go back to the hourly. Let's analyze this while we're in play here, and just kind of see. This is there's our hourly chart. Okay, good stuff. Okay, cool. So we, kind of if we go to the 4 hourly and put in a trend line just along the top, just kind of from where we are from that point there down to that level there. Just that gives us a sense of if this thing is still ultimately potentially going to reverse, that we have some idea of how far away we are from that. So it looks like quite a big bar compared to what we've had in the past. We don't get big bars like that very often. So this is what some people might say is overextended, but we're in profit. Profit target's relatively close by, so hopefully it will break. Again, what we're going to do is we're actually going to watch even how price actually breaks and closes above this level, because it may fail to do that. And so what we ultimately get is a move up to the R 0.5 and then a reversal. And this has been a concern right from the beginning, mainly because the euro has this horrible habit just because the charts these days have this horrible habit of triggering a setup like this. So they trigger through that perfectly, and then they don't deliver. They don't get there. Something's gone wrong here with the bars. They don't look right here. It definitely didn't close like that and then open like this. So something's gone wrong. Change my time frames. Let's just see here. There we go. 5 minutes. It's really unusual. I think I'm going to restart e-signal quickly. So 240. Let's do that. Let's restart e-signal quickly. See where we are. There we go. That's better. That's what I remember happening. Again, I want to kind of see these bars break that high. I want to keep seeing it potentially go to new highs. And of course, when you look at the 5 minute chart, just in terms of cycles, you can tell we haven't had a move back to that 50 moving average. So, we could have that one happen now. It could find resistance here, pull back here, and never ultimately make it through to that target. But that's the kind of market conditions that have been pretty normal now. So as I said, you get a trigger, and the market ultimately doesn't make it past this level. So this is obviously why we are so conservative with our trade. So one option we have here potentially is to bring the stop up to this level, get taken out for a small loss, so that if it pulls back a lot further, that's fine. Ultimately, it may just bounce off here and go long. So I think what I'm going to do is pause this, and let's just you can see what's happening here potentially is a pullback, which is a bounce off that level. So I'm going to pause for a bit and then see where we are a little bit way down the line. If we come right back under here and close and we start moving down towards the 50 moving average, we may just bounce. So there's a lot more room that we kind of have to give this to see what happens. But now that it's broken that pivot, it makes more sense for it to stay above that, to stay and bounce along the pivot until it hits the 50 moving average, because it's kind of unusual for it to completely come back, bounce off the 50, move its way back to the pivot again. Of the two, it doesn't really make sense. Besides, if the market really is going to be bullish today, if this is ultimately going to end up as a bull bar, then we'd obviously like to see a big move here. So I'm just being extra cautious. Last week's pullback resulted in a lot of losses on the Thursday and the Friday, and of course it's Monday today. So we just want to see what happens here, and I don't quite trust it. So I'm going to be super conservative with my target. Okay, so just looking at this, catching up on this a little bit, you'll see prices are now reacting off that level, coming back down to this pivot level. Let's look and see how price reacts around the pivot level. It's potentially just going to break under, do a bounce on the 50 and bounce up again. Again, like I said, there were reasons to take this trade and reasons not to take this trade. It's really just to see how the euro is ultimately going to close up for the day. We still have the possibility the euro actually wants to pull all the way down to this 2750, 2745 area, closer to the trend line or closer to the 50 moving average. And so this may very well be the top part of that particular cycle. Yeah, so we'll keep watching it. Let's see how this goes. Is price going to pull back and will it bounce? But this is quite interesting because, yeah, some traders would wait for that breakthrough, the pivot, wait for the price to come back here, and hit a buy order at this particular level, so they would enter at exactly that level. And then that, of course, would change that risk-reward ratio to 1-to-1. Yeah, so let's just see how this goes. I'll keep recording it, and let's see where it is. Okay. I just want to wrap up this thing today, and I'm not sure if the sound is good. It seems a bit low, but this is ultimately what happened today. So we had our entry on the euro. We remember we got triggered in. We had price pulled back to the 50 moving average, as we suspected it might. It bounced off that relatively nicely, went straight up and hit our target, which was good, which was aimed at. That is interesting. I didn't know that was where my target was. Anyway, and then price came back, and ultimately went a little bit higher and has now proceeded to go sideways. So I'm absolutely certain that's not where I put my targets, but okay. So I was just having a look at this. This was that risk reward setup. And why did I set it there? I'm really not sure why I set that there. I think it was just a sniper trade or something. I'm not sure. Pivot break, head up. I've been coaching the whole day and I've just lost track of the chart. Just wanted to show you the price kind of did head up, ultimately hit my target, closed out the trade, and then has pulled back and is settling at this level. Sitting actually at that 2.9 level. So we'll have to see what happens to the market tomorrow, but I did want to demonstrate to you what a nice little pivot trade setup was. So this one happened to actually hit profits on that one. So it was 294. What was the highest point over here? 2939. I have no idea why I put my target there, but I did. I'll have to go back and watch the video again. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I'll have a look at the video now and see how it turned out. So anyway, so that trade was actually a success. And then we'll just have to see what ultimately happens here. But interesting to see how price kind of came through, didn't ultimately actually hit R1, it just went halfway.